Years ago, I was the proud owner of a majestic 1983 Mercedes 300 SD, boasting an astounding mileage of over 860,000 miles. I acquired the car from my father for a symbolic price of $1, although I amusingly paid him in 99 penny. A couple of years after he had purchased it from his uncle, this magnificent vehicle provided me with a thrilling driving experience. However, as it often happens with aging turbo diesels, the turbo eventually malfunctioned. The car still ran decently, but it became noticeably sluggish when tackling uphill drives. Living in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains exacerbated this issue. The repair cost was estimated at a hefty $800, which meant I needed approximately 6 weeks to save up for the repairs. I thought it would be no trouble. I simply decided to park it on the condo parking pad, a mere 50 yards away from my unit, until I had the funds to fix it. Then, one fateful day, I returned home to discover my car was missing. Although I wasn't devastated, I felt a profound sense of frustration. I promptly contacted the police, and an amiable officer arrived to take a report regarding the stolen vehicle. A week or so elapsed, and I received an unexpected phone call. Much to my disappointment, it turned out that my car hadn't been stolen after all. It had been towed. I made my way to the tow yard and confronted the person in charge, demanding an explanation for this bewildering turn of events. He informed me that an HOA member named Diane had reported the vehicle as improperly parked, citing the association's rules and policies as the reason for the tow. Consequently, I had to pay $550, which encompassed the cost of over a week's storage and the hookup fee in order to retrieve my car. Dishearteningly, during the towing process, the winch cable had left an unsightly dent on my car's front bumper due to its considerable length and weight. Upon returning home, I contacted my landlord to inquire about the CC&R's covenants, conditions, and restrictions. She promptly provided me with a copy, and to my surprise, I discovered no mention of restrictions regarding the length of parking. The regulations solely pertained to abandoned vehicles, whereas my car was fully operational, possessed a valid license plate, and had all 4 tires properly inflated. It was blatantly evident that my car did not meet the criteria for being classified as abandoned. Determined to address this unjust situation, I began conducting extensive research. Armed with the CC&Rs, I knew I had a solid foundation to support my case. Furthermore, I discovered that Georgia law stipulated parking enforcement signs must be 4 feet above the ground, whereas the signs in my neighborhood were positioned at a height of only 3 feet. I took note of each board member's name and the property management company responsible for overseeing the HOA. Curiously, Diane's name did not appear on the list of board members. This revelation piqued my interest. And so, I embarked on a legal battle. I sued everyone involved. I filed lawsuits against the tow truck driver and the towing company, holding them responsible for the damage inflicted on my vehicle. I individually sued each member of the HOA board for their mishandling of the towing procedure. I included my landlord in the lawsuit as a precautionary measure in case she was somehow implicated. Additionally, I sued the property management company since they were directly employed by the HOA. I proceeded to issue a subpoena to obtain all relevant records pertaining to the towing of my car from the tow company. Fortunately, they had recorded their phone calls, and I possessed a recording of the conversation. I also subpoenaed the HOA board minutes from the past decade, which revealed no mention of Diane serving as a board member. Finally, I took legal action against Diane herself, seeking compensation for the expenses incurred in retrieving my vehicle. To my advantage, Georgia state law allowed for treble damages when a defendant acted with willful misconduct or fraud. Considering the approximately 6 hours I invested in researching my case, I decided to compensate myself at a rate of $100 per hour, a figure I deemed fair considering that legal professionals would typically charge double that amount. Consequently, I amended my complaint to request treble damages against Diane. Court day arrived, and, as expected, the judge dismisses the case against my landlord, recognizing that she played no role in the incident. Similarly, the case against the tow truck driver is dismissed since he acted as an agent of the towing company already mentioned. The judge also dismisses the case against each board member, acknowledging their lack of involvement. While I had anticipated these dismissals, it was a strategic move to include all relevant parties in the lawsuit to ensure no potential loophole could be exploited. Now, it's my moment to present my case, and I am fully prepared. I present evidence of the state code that regulates signage, demonstrating that the signage in question did not comply with the applicable laws. This forms the basis of my case against the property management company. The judge asks the company to respond, and they admit their fault. Sensing an opportunity, I move for a directed verdict against the property manager, seeking compensation for the tow hookup fee. The judge awards me $75 for the tow hookup fee and also orders the property management company to reimburse my $50 court filing fee. Next, I present evidence of the damage to my bumper and provide estimates from a Mercedes dealership to repair it. The towing company accepts responsibility, acknowledging their mistake. Consequently, the judge awards me $1,200 as compensation for the damage caused. Moving on to my case against Diane, I call upon the testimony of the tow yard employee who confirms that I indeed drove my car home on that fateful day. I present the recorded phone call made by Diane to have my car towed, and the employee testifies to its authenticity. Bewildered, Diane remains clueless and fails to cross-examine the witness. To further solidify my case, I summon the property manager, who is still present in the courtroom, to testify that Diane is not and has never been a board member. With the submission of evidence showcasing my current registration, proving the validity of the car's tag, and a picture of my vehicle in the courthouse parking lot taken on that day, I establish a compelling argument. In my closing statement, I emphasize that Diane's actions constituted willful misconduct by requesting the towing of my car despite the absence of any violations of the CC&Rs. Furthermore, I assert that she engaged in fraudulent behavior by falsely claiming authority as a board member to authorize the towing. Based on her willful misconduct and fraud, I argue that I am entitled to treble damages. The judge rules in my favor, awarding me $1,075 from Diane. This includes $475 to cover the storage costs paid to the tow yard and an additional $600 for the effort I put into the case. Moreover, the judge applies treble damages against Diane, resulting in a total owed amount of $3,225. However, despite the court's ruling, 30 days pass, and Diane fails to fulfill her payment obligation. As a result, I file a notice with the court. Another 30 days elapse, and still no sign of payment. Determined to collect my rightful compensation, I visit the Marshal's office armed with the judgment. They advise me to locate her bank accounts and return with the relevant information. After investing $150 in hiring a private investigator, we successfully locate her bank account. Returning to the Marshal's office, we proceed to Bank of America, where her checking and savings accounts are seized, although there remains a shortfall of around $1,500. A couple of months later, I discover that she has closed her account at Bank of America. Unwilling to give up, I enlist the assistance of the private investigator once more, and we trace a new account at SunTrust. With this information in hand, I visit the bank and successfully retrieve $1,250. Out of spite, I choose to leave a remaining $250 outstanding on the judgment. Using the $250 judgment against Diane, I file a lion against her home, intending to cause her inconvenience whenever she attempts to refinance or sell the property. Meanwhile, I do manage to use the compensation received to repair my car, and it runs splendidly thereafter. UPS smashed a nearly new MacBook that I sent with them. I asked them nicely to pay me back for it, and they replied about blaming me, blaming my packaging, saying it was impossible they damaged it, etc. I was able to prove my packaging was flawless and get a statement from the Apple shop that I took it to say that the damage was caused by being drop-thrown. I could also prove it worked when I sent it. They weren't interested and messed me about for weeks, sending me from pillar to post, even threatening to make me pay interest on customs charges, which I wasn't liable for as the laptop was smashed on arrival and thus worthless at import. I took it to small claims. They hired a lawyer who sent me letters saying they contested it and would go for full fees, etc. if I lost. I went for it anyway. I did law stuff university, so I knew the basics, and I thought my case was pretty clear-cut. I won. I won my costs back plus extra, plus interest. They ignored the court order and did not pay. Now, this laptop was originally being sent to my beloved mother-in-law. She asked me to help her with the problem as UPS were also seriously harassing her for the customs fees. However, very unexpectedly, before I could resolve it, she passed away. It was the last thing she ever asked me to do for her. I loved that woman more than pretty much any human on this planet. She was my mother, my best friend, and my mentor. Taking down UPS was now my personal vendetta. I researched my options. I could have taken the usual, more conservative, legal routes to reclaim my money. But no, screw them. I don't care about the money anymore. I want revenge. I want drama. I want justice. I went to the High Court. I got a writ of control. I, of course, added on more fees and more interest. I then hired the most aggressive bailiff firm in London. I trusted the bad processes and attitude of UPS to mean they would ignore the letters and actually get a visit. They did. The bailiffs rock up at UPS headquarters and explain the situation. UPS refuses to pay, so the bailiffs start listing goods. Security tries to make them leave. The office manager tries to bully them out. Obviously, the bailiffs didn't care one bit, and they cracked on with their jobs. I wasn't allowed the body cam footage, but they did send me a detailed report. The final conclusion is copied from it below. Calls were then made to the accounts manager, who arrived in a hurry. As no payment was forthcoming from them, the agent again explained the removal process and costs involved and called the office for approval to begin removals. The agent began to seize assets. The finance director then arrived on the scene. He was not at all happy about the attendance, but ultimately agreed to pay a voluntary payment in full from his personal account in order to stop the removal. I know it's a drop in the ocean to UPS, but I got more than double what I originally asked for to replace the laptop. They would have had to pay even more on top of fees to the bailiffs. I reckon it cost them at least 3 times more than the original claim in the end. But mostly I just enjoy the mental image of the flustered finance director and his impotent rage, having to pay his own money to stop the heavies taking desktop computers and fancy pot plants and things out of their swanky head office lobby. Background: I'm a hospitalist physician and have been working at a micro-hospital for the past 4 years, serving as both a hospitalist and medical director. A micro-hospital is essentially a freestanding ER with overnight observation beds. When I started at said facility, it was new, and I have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into helping get it off the ground. During COVID, it was a nightmare and took a physical and mental toll on a lot of the staff, myself included. Imagine up to 36-hour shifts with no downtime, no breaks, and no days off for months on end. I was exhausted and needed a break in the form of a small vacation with my wife and kids. This was the beginning of the problem, apparently. This was too much of an ask for the owner and his lapdog of a CEO. Beginning of the end. During my short and, personally, I believe, deserved vacation, the owner and CEO constantly called and texted and demanded I return early, essentially ruining my vacation. Upon my return, I found that the owner had cleared out my office and given it to his college dropout son to use as a media room for his pro-gamer Twitch career, which is fine. No big deal, I guess, since it's your building. However, a line was crossed when I discovered this jerk had shredded pictures of my family and tossed sentimental keepsakes from my kids in the dumpster. Starting that afternoon, I began looking for a new job, easily found one, and put in my 2 weeks' notice a few weeks later. Yesterday was my last day. I was going to just walk away, however, when I overheard my boss joking about taking the trash out of my former office. I couldn't help myself. Revenge is sweet. Last night, as I finished up my duties for the day and prepared to leave the facility for the last time, I decided to take out the trash in my own way. Our computers share common storage for back-office forms, emails, policy documents, etc. Documents and things that are involved in the day-to-day operations of the facility, but not involved in patient care, documents that I have spent a lot of time helping to craft. This storage system also is where my boss keeps pictures of his family. Well, those pictures somehow were erased, as was all the content in the documents. Files are present but are just blank pages. This was sweet enough until I came across emails that prove he was cheating on his wife, which I may have accidentally forwarded to her. Finally, upon leaving the office, I changed the passwords on all the computers and altered the door code to the administrative suite. This morning, I received several frantic voicemails on my way to my new job, which were entertaining to listen to. It's been a good day,